What job will never be taken over by a robot? People know how complicated and difficult their own job is, but they don't know as much about other jobs and assume all the jobs currently getting automated are really simple. Otherwise, how could they be getting automated? They don't realize that a lot of those other jobs had nearly as many weird corner cases and difficult problems as their own job does. I am in the automation field. The 4 Ps: prostitutes, people who do a job no one wants automated; pimps, people who work on or past the line of unlawful behavior; no one who can automate that work wants the liability of doing so; professionals, highly trained, all automation does is make them faster; project managers, responsible for the success and failure of things, dealing with the complexity that it all is. Even if we could automate them, we won't, because they would fire us if we tried. If your career is any of these or a combo of these, you are fine. If not, well. My answer was house painting. It's just such a multifaceted job that whether you have one robot that can somehow do it all or multiples for various tasks, the cost of them will not be lower than skilled human hands, at least not in my lifetime. I also worked all my time as a painter in the oldest town in Texas, and as such I've worked on many historical properties. There's a certain finesse you have to have. It's like comparing a 3D printed model to something expertly sculpted by hand. You'll always see those robot lines when you look close enough. Anything veterinary pretty much. I work in that field and I can't imagine robots, androids restraining animals without hurting them. Not to mention the robots aren't gonna know when too much is too much. Sometimes we have to stop restraining the animal for our safety and their safety if they're freaking out. Not to mention I'm sure no animal would react calmly if they see a robot coming near them. There are actually relatively few occupations which will be automated. Most jobs that require autonomous physical savvy, plumbing, construction, tree trimming, complex cooking, or any other job where workers gave to be able to navigate, figure out various physical problems, then solve with their hands, are a long way away from automation. This has to do with what types of skills machines are good at. Machines are extremely good at math, but extremely bad at building a block tower while having to fend off a puppy in the room. That's true until the economics of the block tower building industry get to the point that the savings on human labor are larger than the cost of installing puppy fences at all of the build sites. Not all automated systems will be one-to-one with human jobs, and they don't have to be to replace those jobs. Like, most automated construction is going to be concrete printing rather than 2x4 frames. We picked 2x4 frames because they were easy for people to put together, not because they're objectively some ideal structure for a house with no alternatives. A kitchen could have a consistent system for inventory and subsystems for prep, cooking, and then the cooking system would operate as a gantry moving between the subsystems in a similar way to a factory picker if you redesign the kitchen, etc. A robot chef doesn't need to cook in a human kitchen on any stable time horizon. No one serious thinks that the core of automation is designing alternative human labor to interface with existing systems. It's about designing alternative systems in which human labor is unnecessary. I could see them being used for tree trimming for utility companies. The utility companies don't care about the trees and they often have the human tree trimmers butcher them any old way that makes room for the power lines. If you give a robot a sharp tool and teach it the difference between a branch and a power line, it'll do at least as well as the humans doing it now. Plumber, or any job that isn't assembly line production that involves going out into the field, assessing the situation and applying a unique solution to the specific problem. Robots are good for doing the same thing, the same way over and over again, not so much at creative problem solving. That's why any education that emphasizes rote learning is a waste of time. On the other hand, creative problem solvers will always be needed. I disagree entirely, to the point where I recently wrote an entire book with this as one of its main concepts. If machines being creative strikes you as impossible, Take a look into GPT-3 and what types of things are possible with advanced language processing. DALL-E is one of my favorite examples to show off. This is current, ongoing real research that has a system dreaming up new designs in ways that show a surprisingly deep understanding of the form, function of things it's working with. Play around with the little drop-down menus and be amazed. This system is fed a text prompt like a chair in the shape of an avocado, and it designs the chair to meet those specifications, cleverly combining the pit with a chair pillow. For instance, it can create hybrids of different animals, rendered in various art styles, and this is all based on form inferences from language processing alone. Right now, art is generally delirious and incoherent, but it's advancing at alarming rates. We're probably less than a decade away from machines that can synthesize stories, novels in a way that would be indistinguishable from something man-made. Chunks of text already can pass this basic Turing test, and larger, more sophisticated outputs are continually possible. You used to be able to play around with this at some Talk to Transformer website, but they downgraded that to no longer use GPT-2. Frown. AI isn't going to bring about the death of the writing business. The human touch is what defines it. But the relevance of the writing is in question, especially in art and literature. There are already tools that can reconstruct any work of literature you care to name. Okay, I'm interrupting this paragraph to tell you a little secret. I didn't even write this paragraph's italic text. That was all I generated content to continue my argument, made with this website here. It's pretty fun to play around with, though there are limits for the amount of text you can generate without a paid subscription. Anyways, back to the above. Did you even notice when my writing ended and the AI's writing began? The AI read my couple paragraphs and was able to imagine what type of paragraph might come next. It made sure that the paragraph it contributed was on topic, discussing the broader philosophical notes of humanity in the arts. I didn't tell it to add that specific point, it came up with that on its own. If that's not applied creativity, I don't know what is. We're living in exciting times for machine learning, and I think it'll be only a few more years that humans get to enjoy their monopolies on the arts. None. If you can do it, a robot can copy you. We are but electric impulses traveling back and forth over our brains. Computers are similar, electricity traveling back and forth. So even for jobs that aren't copyable and require creativity, a robot can be programmed to be creative. Additionally, the universe is ruled by math. Everything can be calculated. You can calculate the exact best move for every soldier in your army to move in order to achieve victory. Well, we can't, but a computer could. A computer can already do this for chess. Since the universe is ruled by math and computers operate based on math, computers can do anything and everything. You will lose your job to a computer someday. Yes, and number. So, my last role was in conversational AI. Basically, I built applications to supplement call center work by presenting data to the call center worker based on what the end client was saying, or in some cases, outright handling things that a call center agent might, via voice or text chat. Lots of our clients were absolutely thrilled about how many of their staff they could cut with these sorts of productivity tools. Surely that's mostly due to scale though. If you've got 1 million robots, it'd be beneficial to automate the repairs in a large factory line, I imagine, similar to how right now most rockets are built by people assembling it piece by piece. Meanwhile, cars are produced in a huge automated factory line because they're producing so many and need that scale. Respectfully disagree. Amazon already has fully automated stores. Looks how a semiconductor factory works. It is 95% automated and it's 1000% more complex than a grocery store. It's all about stocking shelves and customer service. Most stores are increasingly moving into self-checkouts. I would bet in the next 10 years grocery stores are going to be 90% automated. Unfortunately, the tech industry is heavily designed, and in some cases built, by robots, and programs, like POOS, graphics cards etc. are all designed by a machine. By the time it's reached production, it's already behind the new best iteration. Admittedly, that new iteration will probably be the tiniest improvement over the previous one, but that's how it works. small jumps every time, and then eventually you decide you'll sell it now once it's built up a big enough gap from the previously sold product. I trust it more than a human in some cases. Humans make mistakes, robots don't. They analyze the data provided and provide an answer or diagnose an illness. I'd love to see a study done on this. Provide both with the hard-to-diagnose patient and all the information they'd need to possibly do so, but scale it up and don't let the doctors know the exact nature of the study. I'm sure it'd be useful information on how fallible humans and robots can be. A robot can never be a human. A robot can never provide the clinical skills of a human. There's something about taking to a human being face-to-face that cannot be replaced. It's human contact and communication. Robots can be smart, but they can't replace humans in some regards. This is one of them. Would you let a robot diagnose you if you had a psychiatric issue, a mental health problem? I'd probably feel more comfortable dealing with my mental issues to a machine compared to a human. At least that way you wouldn't feel judged by voicing your issues out loud to someone who may have biases or opinions, which psychs seem to, and would get an impartial opinion from a machine whose pure focus is helping you. The question is, can a machine truly understand, or at least understand more/the same as another human, what your issues are? Since mental health isn't a visible issue, it could be the human experience that allows us to empathize and diagnose others. Who knows if that's just a set of data or something that can be taught. Despite their best efforts, most retail jobs, it could be streamlined with some robotic implementation, see self-checkouts. But in short, most retail corporations are too cheap to invest the amount of money it would take to both install and maintain them when they can just exploit humans. Not to mention, most human customers wouldn't trust a purely mechanical, in-store, shopping experience. They'd demand to talk to a human at the first difficulty they ran into, both due to the actual limitations of programming making it so they can't get their specific question answered, and believing technology being untrustworthy, not as good as an actual human. Therapy and psychiatry. I don't believe that I could reach a point where it is so indistinguishable from a human that it could give advice to the mentally ill. Psychology fields require mutual empathy for them to work, which is already a hit-or-miss thing. I wouldn't be able to progress outside of medicating patients or giving generic advice. Anything in the service industry, we don't think about it, but the fact that we can tie our hands behind our back and still be able to wiggle our shoulders is a very impressive level of evolution. To build a robot that can do everything a human can do plus be able to multitask, put fries in a fry and cook a burger at the same time, is a very impressive and very costly. Even the mega corporation Amazon is only able to use advanced Roombas in their warehouses. To build a human robot, trillions. I'm seeing a lot of responses to comments in this thread that about things that could technically be replaced by a robot at some point, but it will either be not worth the cost to have a robot do it, or a human will be able to do it better. I'm seeing shit like robots can be a psychologist, but who the fuck wants to tell their problems to a robot? Here's my answer. Most jobs will not be taken over by robots. Human labor is cheap, especially in third-world countries where everything is manufactured. Way cheaper than any robot. If using robots becomes cheaper, humans will just end up accepting work for cheaper than that. On top of that, automation taking a job always ends up creating several new jobs in its absence. People will always find a way to make money as long as it holds value. Technological improvements seem like they have the potential of producing robots that may succeed in many jobs even sooner than it is expected. I suppose, if humanity won't blow itself in a nuclear war, every job would be performed by some robots, softwares in the future. However, countries don't seem like they want to protect the world from being disappeared. I'd like to think that the singer would be pretty tough to replace with a robot, unless text-to-speech gets significantly better at some point, or somebody can get a lot of samples of a lot of different human voices to patch together something that sounds decent. I know there's already a few I sang covers and whatnot, but most of them sound questionable in my personal opinion, but the tech is interesting. any job in which replacing human workers is not cost-effective. While it is truly amazing how well robotic systems can replicate human productivity in very many ways, there will always be some situations where design, tool-up, and operational costs would be prohibitive by comparison with using cheap-ass humans. Never, probably none. With our current level of technology, it's unlikely that certain jobs like plumbers or something would be replaced. But, assuming that technology improves over time, which is a fair assumption to make, given its history, there's probably no job that's completely impervious to automation. Sufficiently advanced neural networks, robotics, and material science is most likely going to automate every job we can think of. Counselors, therapists and psychologists. Sure, some diagnosis and other mental health assessments could be made using certain algorithms and automatic tests, but the part that has to do with human interaction, therapeutic change, existence, personal values, most of human nature, thoughts, feelings and emotions, is something only humans are able to work with. It's in the definition. Unlike robots, humans are not only a brain, or what a computer could conceptualize as intelligence. Also, if therapy were ever to be replaced with automatic algorithms, trained psychologists would need to be on top supervising what is being done, which sounds very unlikely to happen. At least I don't think this'll ever happen during our lifetime. Anything to do with art, I'm assuming that robots work off of algorithm and things they can find on the internet, things that have already been done. A big thing about art is individuality and originality. While a painting that has a Van Gogh style or a drawing of a popular cartoon is very much art, a robot will never be able to have the consciousness to create anything original. I mean, original is subjective, and arguably there is already art that make entirely original art. Using nothing but a few words can create entirely original art in the form of visual stills. Sure, it's just permutations of an algorithm, but it's by all accounts original. So the question is, what is original? Cause even human-made art is just permutations of experiences and ideas of the artist. Can it be said anyone has ever made something original? Hard but not impossible. The goal isn't to perfectly mimic humanity, but just make it so someone can tell the difference without being told which is which, as a fun fact, is already hard to do for most people when it comes to art that makes art, music or stories. Humans are notoriously fucking awful at telling things apart when they don't have the source told to them ahead of time. Drinks, food, music, art, pretty much everything. If you give the average person the choice between the real thing and a fake, the person will likely randomly choose whichever one they see first 9 times out of 10, even if they normally prefer the second. This is why marketing, brand recognition and catchy jingles are so effective. Fine arts and humanities are fucked the moment robots can get 85% of the way there. They don't have to be 100%. This is actually the scary part of automation in general. AI never has to be 100% as good as a human, because humans are naturally flawed. They only have to be 85%, and you likely already have something better than a human just cause of its consistency. Hell, you could even program it to not be consistent to mimic the human touch better than a human. Same goes with job replacement. Replace 85% of the workforce and you effectively do the same thing to that industry as 100%. Full replacement and replication has never been the requirement, just good enough. Criminal profiling. It's a weird cross between criminology, psychology, and it requires a kind of gut feeling to be able to do it properly. I'm sure a computer could take a crack at it, but it requires such an extensive knowledge of human psychology and human experiences that I doubt a computer could ever do it. Maybe not ever, but not in the foreseeable future. Through high-end cooking, getting the flavor profiles right depend on a lot of things, including the quality of ingredients. In cooking, not baking though, recipes are a guideline. You can't say the juice is off one lemon. For example, different lemons have different amounts of juice, the acidity level might be different. It's all about taste. That's why chefs taste everything before they sell it, to make sure the flavor profiles are right.